Welcome to Perth in the heart of Scotland. From this site of an Iron Age fort on Moncrieff Hill, we can see why it was such an important early riverside settlement. The name Perth is Pictish in origin and it means copse or thicket. And for Perth, this name reflects the city's situation as the wooded island or inch on the floodplain. The Romans reached Perthshire around 70 AD, and there is a Roman road and a series of watchtowers and forts along the Gask Ridge, which you can see behind me.
The important thing is that it's both the lowest point at which the river can be crossed, and that's whether it's fordable at low tide or across the ice at some points and by a bridge, but it's also the highest point upstream which seagoing vessels can reach, and that enabled Perth in the medieval period to develop as a very important port of trade, an important source of wealth for the Scottish kingdom.
In 1214, here in nearby Scone, King Alexander II was set upon the stone, establishing forever the Stone of Destiny as the crowning place for Scottish monarchs. In the following centuries, Perth would be captured by Edward I of England in 1296, retaken by Robert the Bruce in 1313, and changed hands twice more before 1340. Scone and Perth were favoured meeting places for kings and parliaments, particularly during the reign of King James I. However, his assassination in 1437 in the Dominican monastery known as Blackfriars may well have prevented it from becoming the capital of Scotland. There were several monasteries in Perth which were developed during the 13th and the 15th centuries, and we still see their names in use today. This is St John's Kirk, the main church established before the 12th century. During the Reformation, John Knox preached against Queen Mary and the Catholic Church. His sermon in the summer of 1559 caused a riot that looted the church, the charter house and the friaries. The name St John comes from the patron saint, St John the Baptist, and was sometimes an alternative name for Perth. The name lives on in place names and the local football club. From the earliest days, Perth's position on the Tay was important both as a port for seagoing vessels and also as a ford or river crossing. We know there was a bridge here in the 12th century which was washed away in the Great Flood of 1209.
The street behind us, Tay Street, was not here in the medieval period. That's a 19th century creation. So the bridge started just at the bottom of the High Street. On the right would have been the chapel to the Virgin Mary, and to the left of that would have been the toll booth, or goods which came across the bridge would have passed through the toll booth and into the town. And looking up the High Street, we would have seen the Market Cross, and we would have seen the tower of St John's Kirk, the parish church. We talk about not one bridge but a whole sequence of original bridges which constantly almost get washed away by the River Tay.
Many more were built and destroyed, but it wasn't until 1766 that a stone bridge was built that could withstand the floods and tides. Also near the mighty Tay, the Perth Inches were important to the city's history. They had been places for sport, pasture, laundry and horse racing. Oliver Cromwell built a citadel on the South Inch, and the North Inch was the site of the famous Battle of the Clans. a bloody spectacle of 30 men from clans Chatton and Kay locked in judicial combat sanctioned by Robert III. Sir Walter Scott also features these events in The Fair Maid of Perth, a book which introduces the epithet, the Fair City. The book was set here at the Fair Maid's house, the oldest house in the city and now home to the Royal Scottish Geographical Society. Near the Inches, we find Perth's two new towns. Here to the north, we have Charlotte Street and Rose Terrace facing the expanded and gentrified North Inch. We have Marshall Place to the south, so called after the Lord Provost Thomas Hay Marshall, who initiated these new towns. Wide roads, ordered streets, and fine Georgian buildings that you can still see today. Further improvements to the town included Perth's first waterworks being built in 1832. This distinctive building is now an exhibition space for work by the Scottish colourist and sculptor John Duncan Ferguson. The influential dancer Margaret Morris met Ferguson in 1913. This was a dynamic relationship, and she was his model and muse. Through the 18th and 19th centuries, Perth continued to grow through industries such as weaving, dyeing, fishing and brewing. David Sandeman was a pioneer in the linen trade and founder of the Sandeman dynasty. John Pooler founded Poolers of Perth in the centre of the city. And famous whisky brands like Dewar's, Glogue and Bell's originated here.
Perth's always associated with some famous brand names in whisky. So the Bell's and Dewar's brands, which went worldwide, had their beginnings here in Perth, and they're remembered very much as great benefactors of the town. A.K. Bell, who was latterly the chief executive of Bell's Whisky, was somebody who founded the Ganachie Trust, and they've been very generous to sort of Perth and the surroundings, and also to throughout Scotland. As you'll know, the library here is named after A.K. Bell because of the generosity of the Ganachie Trust when we were building this place about 20 years ago. Probably one of the things he's most famous for is the Ganachie suburb across the river. It's known as the Sunshine Suburb. He was a man of fairly forthright opinions, and I think he thought he could provide housing better than the local authority could. So he created what is really a very splendid suburb and still a very popular one, a lovely place to live. The Dewar family also are well remembered in the town. The name's commemorated certainly at the Dewar's Rinks, the site of their old bonded warehouse on the Glasgow Road. They were involved in local politics. They were on the town council, members of the family, but they're probably best remembered for giving Canool Hill to the town in 1920s. And we'll have some nice photographs of this ceremony when it was handed over as a great amenity to the sort of city of Perth.
General Accident, Fire and Life Assurance was founded in 1885 and continues here today under the Aviva name. I work here in the A.K. Bell Library, and there are various ways to research your family history. We have a collection of all local newspapers which are really useful for tracing births, marriages and deaths. But you never know what you might find in the papers. And here I am in 1972 celebrating my great-granny's 101st birthday. These are our new digital microfilm readers, and we use these to search the local census and old parish records. I'm currently researching my grandfather, who served with the Black Watch during First World War. And this is the 1901 census, and it shows us everyone who was in the Black Watch barracks at that time. You can find out more about the campaigns and military history of the Black Watch at Balhousie Castle, their home and regimental museum.
Well, in 1962, Queen's Barracks across the road on the other side of Dunkeld Road closed, and that's when the regimental headquarters and the museum came to Balhousie Castle and was open to the public for the first time. And of course, Perth is at the centre of the recruitment area, which actually encompasses Tayside and Fife, so Angus, Dundee, Fife and Perth and Kinross. Well, people will get a real sense of the history of the Black Watch, all the way from 1725 through to 2006. We'll tell people about those symbols of the Black Watch that are so important, the tartan, the badge, the red hackle, and of course the name. We've got artefacts on display that would have been brought back from campaigns by soldiers, and equipment and uniform that they would have used when they were in battle.
The museum is literally brimming with 10,000 years of history, the fascinating story of Perth and Kinross. The collections are a cultural record of how the people of Perth and Kinross have shaped and have been shaped by their environment. The Marshall Monument opened in 1824 as a library and museum for the Literary and Antiquarian Society of Perth. Designed by David Morrison in the Palladian style, it was based on the Pantheon in Rome, with columns to express the building's function for learning. It is one of the oldest purpose-built museum buildings in the United Kingdom and honours the memory of Thomas Hay Marshall. The building was gifted to the city by the Society in 1915 on the condition that it remain in use as a public museum or library in all time coming and for no other purpose whatever. In 2012, Perth regained its city status by letters patent from Her Majesty the Queen as part of her Diamond Jubilee celebrations, becoming the latest chapter in the rich and turbulent history of the fair city of Perth.